I never expected her to remember my name, let alone the way I took my tea. Most people didn't notice details like that. Not anymore. Everyone was busy pretending to be somewhere else, scrolling, typing, half listening. I had gotten used to being background noise in most rooms. But she looked at people properly. That night started the same way most of my evenings did, sitting in my best friend Usman's living room while he argued with strangers online through his headset. The TV played quietly without sound, subtitles flashing across scenes no one watched. I kept my phone face down on my knee, pretending I wasn't waiting for messages that never came. His house always smelled faintly of detergent and something warm cooking earlier in the day. And then she walked in. "Still here?" she asked, smiling in a way that didn't feel like a joke. His mom, Samira Andi. I'd known her for years, in a background way you know a friend's parent. School pickups, Eid gatherings, a polite assalamu alaikum and moving aside so adults could talk. But sometime recently, she had stopped being part of the scenery. Maybe it was the quiet after her husband moved abroad for work. Maybe it was the way the house felt larger around her now. Or maybe I'd just grown old enough to notice things I wasn't supposed to. She carried 2 cups of tea, setting one near me without asking. "Less sugar," she said. "You stopped finishing the sweet ones." I blinked. "You noticed that?" She shrugged, sitting across from me. "You always leave the last sip." It shouldn't have mattered, but it did. I folded the paper napkin beside the cup into smaller and smaller squares, just so my hands had something to do. Her bangles clicked softly when she adjusted the sleeve of her cardigan. I caught myself watching her hands, careful movements, steady, unhurried. Outside, a motorbike passed. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked, louder than necessary. Usman laughed loudly through his headphones, completely unaware of the small silence forming between us. "You come here a lot," she said. I nodded. "It's quieter than my place." That was only half true. My apartment wasn't loud, just empty in a way that followed me around. Dishes stayed clean because I rarely cooked. My phone held conversations typed halfway and deleted before sending. Nights stretched longer when no one expected you home. She seemed to understand without me explaining. "That kind of quiet," she said softly, then stopped herself. "Never mind." We both looked at the tea instead. She smiled again, smaller this time. Not polite, almost tired. "You've grown up," she added. I laughed awkwardly. "I guess that happens." Her eyes lingered a second too long. Not inappropriate, just present, like she was seeing me freshly, adjusting to the idea. I suddenly became aware of everything. How I sat, how close our knees were to the table, the warmth of the room. Usman shouted from his room, asking if anyone had seen his charger. She stood to look for it, brushing past me. A faint scent of jasmine followed her, subtle enough that I wondered if I imagined it. I watched her disappear down the hallway and felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not excitement exactly, more like recognition, like noticing a song you'd heard before but never listened to carefully. When she returned, she handed him the charger and then paused near the doorway. "You're going home soon?" she asked me. "Yeah, probably." She hesitated, fingers resting against the doorframe. "If you're awake later," she said casually, "help me move some boxes from the storage room. I can't lift them alone." A normal request. Completely ordinary. But the way she said it felt like an unfinished sentence. I nodded. "Sure." She gave a small thank you and walked away. A minute later, my phone vibrated. Unknown message. "Don't ring the bell when you come back. Just knock lightly." I stared at the screen longer than I should have, because suddenly it felt like the night hadn't started yet. I knocked lightly, like she'd asked. The house felt different at night. Smaller. The usual noise, Usman's gaming, the television, kitchen sounds had disappeared. Only a dim hallway light glowed, stretching shadows across the floor. The door opened almost immediately. Samira Ani stood there in a loose cotton shawl, her hair untied now, falling around her shoulders. She looked surprised for half a second, as if she hadn't fully expected me to come back. "You actually came," she said. "You asked." She stepped aside, letting me in without another word. The storage room was at the back of the house. Boxes stacked unevenly, old photo frames leaning against the wall, Suitcases zipped shut like pause stories. A single yellow bulb hummed overhead. "These need to go upstairs," she said, pointing at two medium boxes. I thought they were lighter. I lifted one. It wasn't heavy at all. "You could have done this alone," I said. She smiled faintly. "Maybe." We carried them slowly, one trip at a time. The staircase creaked under our steps. Each time we passed each other, there was a careful choreography, shoulders turning, hands pulling back slightly too late. At the top landing, she sat down first, catching her breath even though she didn't look tired. I sat beside her, leaving a respectful gap between us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. A car passed, ordinary sounds filling a silence that didn't feel awkward, just aware. She looked at one of the boxes. "My husband packed these before leaving," she said quietly. "Said we'd sort them when he came back." I didn't know what to say, so I waited. "He hasn't visited in almost 2 years," she added, almost casually. Work keeps extending. The way she said work carried something heavier underneath. "Oh," I murmured. She nodded, staring ahead. "People think distance only happens between cities." Her fingers traced the edge of the cardboard box. I noticed a faint indentation where a ring used to sit on her hand. The absence felt louder than jewelry. "I used to stay up late waiting for calls," she continued. "Now I fall asleep before the phone even rings." I swallowed, unsure why her words felt personal, like she'd accidentally described my own evenings. "I stay up too," I admitted. "Just scrolling, typing messages I don't send." She turned to look at me then, properly. "Why not send them?" I shrugged. "Feels strange to bother people who aren't thinking about you." Her expression softened. Not pity, not sympathy. Recognition. We sat there longer than necessary, shoulders almost touching. The air felt warmer upstairs, or maybe I was just aware of her closeness now. "This is inappropriate," she said suddenly, though her voice held no accusation. I froze. "What is?" She gestured vaguely between us. "You being here so late. You're my son's friend." The words landed gently but firmly. I nodded. "I know." Neither of us moved away. My mind started filling with questions I refused to ask. What she thought of me, whether she felt the same strange pull, whether I had imagined everything. She laughed softly, breaking the tension. "You look terrified." "I am," I admitted. That made her laugh again, quieter this time. When we stood to move the last box, our hands reached for it at the same moment. Her fingers brushed mine. Not an accident. Not entirely intentional either. She didn't pull away immediately. Just a brief pause, skin against skin, warm, steady. Then she let go, but her eyes lingered on mine with a softness that stayed long after the touch ended. I carried the box upstairs, heart unsteady for reasons I couldn't explain. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. After that night, things should have gone back to normal. They didn't. I started coming over earlier than Usman asked me to. Sometimes he wasn't even home yet. I told myself it was convenience, closer to my university, better internet, free tea. But really, I had begun noticing her schedule. The sound of dishes around 6. The back door opening for evening air. The way she watered the plants slowly, like she wasn't rushing toward anything anymore. We never mentioned the storage room again. Instead, we spoke about ordinary things. Weather. Groceries. A drama serial she half-watched while folding laundry. Small conversations that somehow felt heavier than serious ones. One evening, she handed me tea without looking directly at me. "You've been visiting a lot," she said. I smiled carefully. "Am I being annoying?" She shook her head too quickly. "No, just noticeable." That word stayed with me. Noticeable meant someone else could notice too. Right on cue, Usman walked in from the kitchen, grabbing snacks. "You two talk more than me and my own mom now," he joked, laughing. I laughed too loudly. She didn't laugh at all. Her eyes dropped to the table. Something shifted after that. She became slightly distant, still kind, still warm, but careful. Conversations shorter. Smile softer. She started leaving the room earlier, finding reasons to stay busy. I told myself it was better this way. Still, I noticed everything. The untouched second cup she sometimes made before realizing I wasn't there yet. The way she checked her phone when I arrived, as if reminding herself of boundaries. The pauses before she spoke my name. One night, rain trapped me there longer than planned. Heavy monsoon rain, loud against the windows, streets flooding too quickly to leave. Usman fell asleep on the couch halfway through a movie. The house dimmed again. She stood near the balcony door, watching the rain slide down the glass. I joined her, keeping distance this time. "You should go home before it gets worse," she said, though neither of us moved. "I can wait." Silence. The rain filled everything we weren't saying. She wrapped her shawl tighter around herself. I noticed her hands trembling slightly, not from cold. "This isn't fair," she murmured. "To who?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. "To you," she said finally. "You're young. You should be somewhere else, with someone simpler." Simpler. I stared at the rain. My reflection beside hers in the glass looked almost like a couple standing together. "I don't feel young when I'm alone," I said quietly. She closed her eyes for a second. That seemed to hit somewhere deep. We stood closer now, without deciding to, our shoulders nearly touching. I could hear her breathing, slow, uneven. She turned toward me. Too close. Her gaze searched my face like she was trying to memorize something before losing it. My heart started racing. My thoughts tangled. "Don't move, move. Say something, don't ruin this." Her hand lifted slightly, hesitating near my arm, then rested there, light, careful, almost questioning. I looked down at her fingers, then back at her eyes. Neither of us spoke. The distance between us disappeared slowly, unconsciously. I leaned forward just enough to feel her breath. She didn't step back. For a second, just one, it felt inevitable. Her lips parted like she might say something, or do something, and then footsteps shifted behind us. Usman turned on the couch, mumbling in his sleep. She pulled her hand away instantly. A step back, then another. "We should check on him," she said, voice uneven. I nodded, though neither of us moved right away, because we both knew how close we had come, and how impossible it would be to pretend we hadn't. After the rain night, we started avoiding being alone together. Not intentionally, just carefully. If I arrived, she found something to clean. If she entered the room, I suddenly remembered messages I needed to answer. Conversations became shorter, safer. Usman filled most of the space between us without realizing he was doing it. But tension doesn't disappear just because people pretend it has. It waits. A week later, Usman asked me to walk with him to the corner shop. Halfway there, he got a call and turned back home, leaving me alone on the quiet street. I should have gone home too. Instead, I kept walking. The neighborhood park sat nearly empty at that hour. A few dim lamps, metal swings creaking softly in the wind. I sat on a bench, scrolling aimlessly, not reading anything. I didn't expect her to find me, but she did. I heard her before I saw her, slow footsteps on gravel. "I thought you went home," she said. I looked up surprised. She held a light shawl around her shoulders, like she'd come out in a hurry. "Usman said you walked this way," she added. She sat beside me, leaving space between us. The same careful distance we'd been maintaining all week. For a while, we watched nothing together. A stray cat crossed the path. A distant motorbike faded into silence. The night felt suspended, like something waiting to be acknowledged. "You've been quiet," I said finally. She smiled faintly. "You too." Another pause. Her hands twisted the edge of her shawl, folding it, unfolding it again. A nervous habit I hadn't noticed before. "This needs to stop," she said gently. My chest tightened. "What does?" She exhaled slowly, eyes fixed ahead. "Whatever this is becoming." The words didn't sound angry. They sounded tired. I nodded, though it felt like agreeing to something I didn't understand. "You didn't do anything wrong," she continued quickly. "That's the problem." I let out a small breath that almost turned into a laugh. "That doesn't make sense." "It does," she said. "You're kind to me. You listen. You notice things." Her voice lowered. I forgot what that felt like. The confession sat between us, fragile. She looked at me then, fully, without hiding behind politeness. "I'll wait for you to come over," she admitted. My heart stumbled. "I checked the clock," she added. "I tell myself it's because you're Usman's friend. But it isn't only that anymore." I didn't know where to put my hands. I pressed them together, staring at the ground. Every imagined scenario I'd rehearsed suddenly felt real and terrifying. "This isn't fair to you," she whispered. Or to him. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Jealousy flickered unexpectedly inside me. Not toward anyone specific, just toward the life she still belonged to, the boundaries I couldn't cross. "I never asked for anything," I said quietly. "I know," she replied. "That's why it's dangerous." The wind lifted a strand of her hair across her face. Without thinking, I reached out and brushed it back. My fingers lingered longer than necessary. She didn't move away. Her breathing slowed. Mine didn't. The space between us shrank again, familiar and unavoidable. Her eyes searched mine like she was looking for permission or resistance. "I'm trying to be responsible," she said softly. "But when you look at me like that," her voice faded. I realized then she wasn't pulling away because she felt nothing. She was pulling away because she felt too much. My hand was still near her cheek. Neither of us moved. The world narrowed to the sound of our breathing, the faint rustle of leaves, the weight of a decision hovering just above us. She swallowed, barely audible. And then, almost a whisper, "What do you think happens if we stop pretending?" I didn't answer her question. Not really. Something passed between us on that bench. Understanding without agreement, closeness without permission. We sat there a little longer, neither moving toward nor away from the moment. Eventually, she stood first. "We should go back," she said, voice steady again. And just like that, the wall returned. The next few days felt off. Not cold, not distant, just rearranged. I went to Usman's house on Thursday like usual. The lights were on, TV playing loudly, but she barely stayed in the room. A polite greeting, tea placed on the table. Then she disappeared into the kitchen and didn't come back. I told myself she was busy. Saturday, I didn't go at all. I waited to see if she would notice. My phone stayed silent. By Monday, I convinced myself I had imagined everything. The bench, the confession, the way her voice softened when she said she waited for me. Maybe she regretted saying it. Maybe she decided to fix things quietly. I tried to do the same. Classes, gym, late night scrolling. The familiar rhythm of being alone returned too easily, like slipping back into old clothes. Then Usman mentioned it casually while we were eating at a roadside stall. "Mom's thinking of moving for a while," he said between bites. My hand froze around my glass. "Moving? Yeah. My Kala want her in Lahore. Says she's been alone too much." Alone. The word landed heavily. "When?" I asked, trying to sound normal. He shrugged. "Soon, I think. She already started sorting stuff." Sorting stuff. Boxes. Storage room. I nodded, pretending it meant nothing. That evening I walked past his house without planning to. The front gate was open. Lights glowed warmly inside. For a moment, I almost went in. But through the window, I saw her talking on the phone. She was smiling, polite, composed, distant. Not the woman from the park bench. Not the woman who waited for me. I stepped back before she could see me. After that, I stopped showing up. Partly pride, partly fear. Mostly because I didn't know what role I was supposed to play anymore. Days passed. No messages. No accidental meetings. The absence grew louder than our conversations ever were. One night, my phone lit up with her name. I stared at it for a long time. "Are you okay? Haven't seen you." Simple. Careful. Almost formal. I typed a reply. I didn't want to make things harder for you. Deleted it. Typed again. "I miss talking to you." Deleted that too. The cursor blinked patiently, waiting for honesty I wasn't brave enough to send. Outside, someone laughed on the street. A motorbike roared past. Life continued without asking whether I was ready. I locked my phone and placed it face down beside me. The message remained unread. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. 3 messages remaining. Upgrade to plus to keep the conversation going. Upgrade 3 days after a message. I finally replied. "I am okay. Just busy." It was the safest lie I could send. She didn't answer immediately. Hours passed. Evening turned into night. I told myself that was expected. Conversations between us had always moved carefully, like people stepping across fragile ground. Then another message appeared. "I leave tomorrow." That was it. No explanation. No extra words. My chest tightened before I could think about it. I grabbed my jacket without deciding to. The walk to Usman's house felt shorter than ever, my mind repeating the same question. Why didn't you go sooner? The gate was half closed. Lights still on. I stood there longer than necessary, hand hovering before knocking. The same hesitation as that first night, except now it felt heavier, like something was ending whether I moved or not. I knocked lightly. The door opened slowly. She looked tired, not sad, just someone who had already accepted something difficult. You came, she said softly. I didn't know you were leaving. She nodded, stepping aside to let me in. The living room was full of packed boxes now. The house looked unfamiliar, stripped of its usual warmth. Absence already settling into corners. Usman wasn't home. I didn't want to make it dramatic, she said, closing the door behind me. It's temporary. We both knew temporary could mean anything. The kitchen light was on, so we drifted there automatically, the place where most of our conversations had quietly lived. A kettle sat on the stove, though it wasn't boiling. 2 cups already placed on the counter. She noticed me looking. I still made tea out of habit, she admitted, almost embarrassed. I smiled faintly. Neither of us sat down. The silence felt honest this time. No pretending. No distractions. I thought staying away would make it easier, I said finally. Her shoulders dropped slightly, relief mixing with guilt. I hoped it would. It didn't. She nodded. No. We stood facing each other, close enough that distance no longer felt protective. I kept asking myself what I was doing, she said quietly. Waiting for someone younger than me. My son's friend. A small breath escaped her. It scared me. I wasn't trying to change her life, I said. I know. Her eyes softened. That's why it mattered. The words settled deeply. She leaned against the counter, hands gripping its edge like she needed something steady. I forgot who I was before you started coming over, she confessed. Not because of romance, just because someone looked at me like I was still here. Present. Alive. Seen. I swallowed, feeling the weight of everything unsaid pressing forward. I didn't feel invisible with you, I admitted. Her eyes glistened slightly, though she didn't cry. We both understood then. This wasn't about stealing a future or rewriting lives. It was about a moment of recognition that arrived at the wrong time, or maybe the only time it could. She stepped closer, not rushed, not impulsive, careful. Her hand found mine, warm and steady. No hesitation this time. If we crossed that line, she said gently, we might lose the part of this that was honest. I nodded, even though part of me wanted to argue. Staying mattered more than possession. She squeezed my hand lightly, a thank you, an apology, something in between. I'm glad you came tonight, she said. Me too. We stood like that for a moment longer, neither trying to make it bigger than it was. Then she smiled, small, tired, real. Take care of yourself, she whispered. I nodded. Okay. And somehow, that simple word felt like the bravest thing either of us had said. Time didn't rush after she left. It stretched. The first week felt unfinished, like walking into a room and forgetting why you came there. I still caught myself passing Usman Street without thinking, slowing near the gate before remembering the house was quieter now. He told me she settled in Lahore, helping relatives, resting more, sounded lighter on calls. I nodded like that information didn't rearrange something inside me. Life resumed its ordinary rhythm. Classes, work, evenings alone again. I made tea sometimes out of habit, though I usually preferred black coffee. The apartment stayed clean. Messages still went unsent. But something had changed. The loneliness wasn't sharp anymore, just familiar. Months passed. Summer softened into early winter. One morning, while waiting a roadside cafe before class, my phone buzzed at exactly 8:47 a.m. Her name. I stared at it longer than necessary. I'm visiting for a few days. Thought you should know. No emojis. No explanations. Just information. The way we had always spoken when feelings hid between lines. I typed slowly. Welcome back. We met 2 days later. Not planned formally. Just a message asking if I was free for tea. The same neighborhood park bench waited where it always had. The paint slightly more faded, leaves gathering underneath. Nothing dramatic. Nothing cinematic. Just familiar. She was already there when I arrived, holding 2 paper cups. You still take less sugar, she said, handing one to me. I laughed quietly. You still remember. Some things don't leave you. She looked different, rested, or maybe distance had allowed both of us to breathe. The tension that once hovered between us felt calmer now, settled into something steadier. We talked about ordinary things again. Travel delays, family gossip, my studies, her new routines. No rush to revisit the past. At one point, our shoulders brushed lightly when we both shifted on the bench. Neither of us moved away. The silence felt easy, not heavy like before, not dangerous, just shared. I miss talking to you, she said eventually. I nodded. Me too. No grand confession followed. None was needed. We had already said the important things in smaller moments. Kitchens, rainstorms, unfinished sentences. A group of children ran past us laughing. She watched them, smiling softly. I thought distance would make everything fade, she admitted. Did it? She shook her head. It made things clearer. I understood. We weren't trying to reclaim something forbidden anymore. We weren't pretending nothing existed either. Whatever this was had survived without urgency, without possession. It felt earned. When we stood to leave, she didn't step away immediately. Her hand found mine naturally, like it belonged there now. Not secret, not hidden. Warm. Simple. We walked slowly toward the street together. No promisi spoken. No labels needed. Just two people who had met each other at the right emotional moment, even if life had taken the long way around. At the corner, she glanced at me with that same quiet smile from months ago. Tea next week, she asked. I nodded. Okay. And for the first time, the future didn't feel like a question. It felt like a routine waiting to happen. Mornings, shared cups, conversations that didn't need explaining. Later that night, making tea alone, I realized something gentle had settled inside me. We hadn't chased love. We had grown into it. And maybe that was why it finally felt calm enough to stay. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?